Hello, hello. My name is Ashley Winters, better known as Media Wench here on Necroplex Media. And today I would like to present to you an article that was written by Doni Chamberlain from a news cafe. And she is the person who runs a news cafe, which is a web-based news site. She is a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist and has written many very, very good articles about Shasta County politics, things that are going on up there. Right now, one of those things is the recall of Kevin Crye, who is a District 1 supervisor. There's been a lot of things that have come out about Kevin that will showcase his inability to be a supervisor and that definitely disqualify him from running or holding any kind of office. This being probably the most damning one, which is what has kind of motivated me to pre-record a video and give a little presentation on it. If you're not familiar with the recall effort of Kevin Crye and you need to catch up on it, you can go to recallkevincrye.org. That has all of the information that you could possibly need, but you can also do a search on anewscafe.com and just search for Kevin Crye and you'll find all kinds of other articles. This one stood out to me in particular because it just came out today. And I'm going to go ahead and read this for you. And it has some news clips in here and we're just going to jump into it. The article is titled Victims, Classmates, Parents, County Staff Reveal Supervisor Kevin Crye's Dark, Devious, Demented Side. It's been more than 30 years since teenage Kevin Crye participated in an alleged sexual assault of a female classmate. The incident happened at a pool party attended by many other Anderson High students. According to the victim, she and Crye were a year apart in school. She was wearing a one-piece bathing suit. Before the assault, before joining her friends in the pool, she'd gone to the house to use the bathroom. When finished, she opened the door to leave. She said that Crye and another boy were there waiting for her. They pushed open the door and forced their way in, she recalled. Then they pushed me down on the floor. It was a small bathroom. Kevin was the main aggressor. We struggled. They tried to get my bathing suit off, and I tried to keep it on. After what seemed like a long time, but was probably only a minute or two, they gave up. It was all quiet. I was so embarrassed. I got up off the floor, and the other boy tousled my hair roughly before they both walked out. Crye's alleged victim did not report the assault to the police, school officials, her parents, or even her best friends. We were conditioned to keep things like that secret back then, she said. I never told anyone until recently. That teenage girl grew up and left Anderson. She started a family and a new life far from the memory of what happened in that bathroom. She said that the traumatic memories were especially haunting her during her remaining years in Anderson, when a particular business reminded her of the last name of the boy she'd fought off as he tried to strip her naked. I thought about it every time I walked past Hugh and Crye and Anderson by the bowling alley. Now a grown woman, Crye's alleged victim came forward with her story after she learned Crye was a candidate for Shasta County District 1 Board of Supervisors. To protect the victim, a news cafe declined her offer to reveal her identity in this story. The reason the victim broke her silence about the alleged assault was because she was desperate that the public was aware of the real Kevin Crye for the sake of her hometown and Shasta County. She's not alone. Others have come forward with their own recollections about Crye at various times in his life and a desire to reveal his true nature. For another Anderson High School classmate, Crye was unforgettable for several other reasons. Kevin was memorable because our class size at Anderson were very small. He was a big personality, loud and obnoxious, and I was a very shy person who tended to just sit back and observe everyone. I still tend to be that way, so I often remember people who never noticed me. The shy classmate recalled firsthand knowledge of how Crye cheated on homework and tests. He was a year ahead of me, but behind in several subjects, and so we had few classes together. I was in math class with him, and they had us all working in small groups of 3 or 4 with our desks pushed together. He never did his homework and would usually race in right before class and then grab mine to copy, and he was constantly cheating off my quizzes and tests. I was somewhat afraid of him. He'd be friendly to get what he wanted, and then there was always this edge to him. Even back then, he was kind of a shyster, always trying to work some kind of angle that would benefit him. A bit like Eddie Haskell, but not as likable. Teachers used to roll their eyes a lot whenever he was mentioned. I can't recall him being part of any friend group. If that description sounds familiar, cheating, taking others' work as his own, being nice just long enough to get what he wanted, review these 2 videos where Crye is being interviewed by a pastor who asks for the secret to Crye's success.
I always was thinking about entrepreneurially doing different things, or how to get out of class, or how I could get in the smartest group of students in my class where we'd have a big project to do, and I would do the one thing that was the least amount of work, but I would still get the best grade. Always thinking about how to work those angles. So we were playing capture the flag in high school, our soccer team, and I was an underclassman, and all the underclassmen were sent all over the campus, and we had to get back to this tree without being tagged by basically all the seniors and some of the juniors. And so everyone was tagged, and I was basically hiding because I didn't want to get tagged, but obviously the game is to get to the end, and really just felt like I got to get there. I know I can win. I just have to think about how. So a custodian walked by, and I asked the custodian, his name was Richard. I said, "Hey, Richard, do me a favor. Grab me by the arm and just start chewing me out like I'm in trouble and walk me to that tree." He said, "Okay." So he grabs me, and he's just tearing into me, yelling at me. And it wasn't, believe me, it wasn't beneath me to get in trouble. So this wasn't like a big shock to my coach or anybody else. And so it's like the Red Sea parting. All the seniors just get out of the way. They're like, "Oh, he's in trouble." And he just lets me go, and I walk up and just touch the tree. And I celebrate, and the seniors are having to do calisthenics. And my coach, Tim Kleiber, says, "You're either going to sell cars for a living, or you're going to rule the world."
Yeah, it would have been better for everybody if he just sold cars. Many of Crye's high school photos depict him posing with various sports teams, such as football and soccer. However, the shy girl recalls one exception. There are no pictures of him on the baseball team because he was big and slow and didn't make the team due to that, combined with a terrible attitude. As revenge, he got his umpire certification and would then officiate Anderson High games where he would make unfair calls against the school and get into arguments with the coaches and eject them from the game. These coaches were his teachers at the time. I saw this happen 3 times. He was always being an ass, and he used to cheat off people's homework, including mine. He was taking basic algebra as a senior. Not exactly a scholar. I always thought it took an amazing amount of ego to bait your teachers into an argument so you can throw them out of a game, she said. I suppose it was an early example of his vindictiveness. Crye carried his formative years' love of sports into adulthood, where among his coaching jobs, he coached Shasta High School girls basketball. It didn't take long before students and parents alike noticed some of Crye's patterns and behaviors that they found disturbing. Eventually, a group of upset parents took their complaints to the school administrator. Not long after the parents aired their complaints about Crye, a credentialed school teacher and well-respected coach stepped up and said he wanted that coaching position. Because the credentialed teacher had seniority, he got the job, and Crye was dismissed. A partial list of the parents' complaints included: pressured players to play while injured, used his position of authority to intimidate and humiliate players, pressured girls to play only basketball, stating that if a player is playing another sport, then he will have more time for the remaining basketball players he will help improve and play more. Players who did choose to play a second sport were treated differently, such as not being able to start games or they may end up playing less. Pressured girls to play AAU, Amateur Athletic Union, basketball to improve opportunities to play on Shasta High School's teams. Inappropriately contacted and pressured middle school age girls and parents through direct contact, emails, and possibly text messages to play on one of the AAU Wolfpack basketball teams, stating that it would enhance students' abilities to play on the Shasta High School teams. Inappropriately shared information with players about other players who may have communicated concerns to Crye or whose parents communicated concerns to him. This resulted in players and parents being pitted against one another regarding who was in and who was out. Held fundraisers before team members had tried out and or had been selected for the team. In one instance, 14 girls were planning to try out for the varsity team, and yet Crye announced several times before the dinner auction fundraiser that he was only keeping 12 players. Put pressure on girls whose parents were not actively fundraising, causing some parents to classify the fundraising as coercive. Showed favorite students and parents preferential treatment while snubbing those parents and students who'd fallen out of favor with Crye. Inappropriately contacted players by text and emails during the school day. Sent a Sunday email one day before tryouts that said, if your blue card was not turned in Friday, don't bother coming out Monday, knowing full well that 2 returning senior players had not turned in their blue cards. Other girls who were trying out knew who had turned in their blue cards, although crye had allowed 2 senior girls to attend the first day of tryouts. Crye singled them out and subjected them to a grueling afternoon of crye treating the girls as if he was on the outs with them. 2 additional complaints regarding young female athletes, although not on the Shasta High parents' formal list of grievances against crye, were more damning. Crye was allegedly seen by a parent at an upscale Reading restaurant dining alone with one of his female athletes. When the parent asked why crye and the student were there, crye replied that he was rewarding the student for her good behavior. And at an away game during downtime, students were at a mall that included a lingerie retail store. Crye allegedly asked a teen athlete to try on and model lingerie so he could see and decide what to buy his wife for a gift. Crye's behavior while campaigning for the District 1 supervisor seat foreshadowed the kind of supervisor crye would ultimately reveal himself to be. During one of his speeches, during the first public comment period at a supervisor meeting, crye claimed that not only was he friends with then District 1 Supervisor Joe Comenti, but he actually campaigned for Comenti.
Joe, I campaigned for you. You are my supervisor in my region.
When a news cafe contacted Comenti for a confirmation of crye's statements, Comenti gave 2 denials. First, Comenti said that he and crye were not friends. Second, Comenti said that crye had not campaigned for him. When crye first announced his candidacy, crye flat out lied when he claimed he lived in District 1. In fact, he and his family lived in what he described during public comment as his wife's recently remodeled dream home. What he didn't mention at the time was the crye family home was actually in District 4, Supervisor Patrick Jones's district.
You told me this right before that. So you don't live in District 1, but you...
Well, I do now.
Or you do now.
Yeah, I do now. So when this all happened, see, I campaigned for Joe. And, like I said, we were friends. So, this is how, and I'll admit this, like this is pretty, voter scores. You have a 1 if you're registered and don't vote, and you're an 8 if you're registered and you vote all the time. Well, I was a 5. So that means I vote more often than not. Of course, the big elections, but not all the primaries and some of those. So I actually thought I had voted for Joe, but I actually had voted for Patrick because I had campaigned for Joe. So when I decided to run, I thought I was in District 1. Well, then I realized I'm not even in District 1.
Yeah.
And so it was like, shoot, I guess that's it. So what I did was I went down to the county office, the voter registration and Kathy Darling's office. And I looked up the rules and I said, okay, well, can I move in there? So Kelly Campbell, a childhood friend of mine, fantastic realtor, started looking for houses for us. And couldn't find a house that we were ready to buy and try and sell and do this. Because I'm that passionate about running. Like I am so all in. So what I've done now is I'm living in an apartment complex away from my wife and my kids, where we first lived when we got married. So
really?
that's what I'm doing. And I didn't write the rules. And some people will say, oh, well, you're doing, no. We're going to get a house in District 1. That's not the thing. But
so, and then that's your plan. So obviously if you got elected, you'd have to stay in District 1.
When I get elected. Yeah. It's not an if. Yeah. I mean, this is, for me, absolutely. But I'm not going to put like when I went to basic training, I didn't have we had 1 child at a time. I didn't bring my daughter and my wife. So, this is a family decision. Like, this wasn't something that we held lightly. It was, this is what dad's got to do.
Comenti's failure to claim crye as a friend, reminiscent of a lead photo on the Vote Kevin Crye Facebook page of a grinning Congressman Doug LaMalfa and crye. Crye had often bragged publicly of his and LaMalfa's close ties and that LaMalfa was in full support of crye. But when a news cafe contacted Mark Spanigal, excuse me, LaMalfa's chief of staff, to confirm that LaMalfa was in fact in full support of crye, his response looked as if he'd misunderstood the question. Congressman LaMalfa opposes allowing Gavin Newsom appointing anyone, especially in Northern California, Spanigal texted back. No mention of crye whatsoever. One of the most stunning, now ironic turnarounds of all had to do with crye's campaign statements about rumors of dark money and outside influence, which is how crye justified traveling to meet Reverge and Selmo in person to ask questions.
When I got involved with this and people started talking about the dark money, and this was actually, I'm talking before I even announced, and I didn't really know I was going to announce until the night before that board meeting. And when I started to understand, and I asked questions a little bit about like, how do you run a campaign? What does it cost? And then, what is a PAC? I didn't even know what really a PAC was. I know that you always hear that, well, politicians are all bought and paid for. So then I heard, well, different PACs support different people. So what I did, and this is going to make people just go nuts with their theories or whatever, but when I found out there was somebody trying to buy Shasta County, I said, how's he trying to buy Shasta County? They said, well, this is how that's happening. I talked to a person that's very no on the recall and the money coming from a billionaire somewhere else. I'd never been to Anselmo's restaurant. Ever.
You're talking about Reverge Anselmo.
Never been to his restaurant. Couldn't afford to go there. Probably couldn't afford to go there if it was there today. But what I did was I got a hold of him and I flew to Phoenix on my own dime, $874.37. That's what it cost me to go. And I went and sat with him and said, are you trying to buy my county? Because if that's how deep this corruption was, if that was true, I wanted no part of that because I didn't know where that was going to lead. I feel like our county's been bought and paid for by a lot of different groups. I've realized that now. I hadn't at the end of October before I declared I was going to run.
In December, Anselmo donated $117,059.74 to the Stop Newsom No on Crye recall via Anselmo's financial campaign money conduit, the Water Users Committee, which is headed up by Mark Kent. While campaigning for the supervisor position, Crye did not contain his extreme disdain for Erin Resner, the woman who routinely came across at forums and debates as better prepared, more poised, and more informed. During one forum where Resner referred to notes as she spoke about complex data, Crye mocked her for bringing notes. This admission would come as no surprise to Crye's former classmates and teachers.
Welcome. Thank you so much to the Chamber for hosting this forum. I'm really excited to be here. You obviously are all very excited and enthusiastic and ready to be here. My name is Erin Resner, and I'm going to give you a little bit of background about me. I am a wife, a business owner, a mother of 4. I'm the former mayor of Reading and a current member of the Reading City Council. I'm running for Shasta County District 1 Supervisor because I have the necessary skills and experience to steward what the county needs to do really well. And in all honesty, Kevin's really right. Kevin's right. It takes a lot of work. And after 17 years and an impeccable record, we've done a really good job. I know what it's like to sleep on the floor when you're attempting to make ends meet. I'm so sorry. If you could, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. I know what it's like. I know what it's like to do the hard work. I know what it's like to balance being a mother and to balance running a business. I know what it's like to balance being a mother, to balance being a business, and to balance being an elected official, and to do it with class and to do it with decorum. I think that anybody who has worked with me would tell you that the thing that they're most impressed by is that even when we disagree, that I am respectful and that I get things done. The thing that I do best is that I get people around the table and we collaborate. And I think that if you would actually, thank you. If you would actually do your homework and read the record, you would find that I've done an incredible job and all of my accomplishments speak for themselves. Thank you so much. Because I really care about talking about housing. Today, I was at the ribbon cutting for the Center of Hope, which is the perfect example of merging nonprofits and private and public sponsorships. I also, while I was mayor, there were 168 income qualifying housing units that came up. And we recently on the council just approved 4 projects for March. That includes 128 units and 40 extra units that are income qualifying seniors. I think that one of our biggest problems, and I can tell you in working with the crisis response team, is that one of our most difficult things is that when we are attempting to get homeless folks off of the street is to get them into some sort of transitional housing. It's not a housing first sort of method. It is an aspect of that we need wraparound services, and that's the way in which that we differentiate between the people who need a hand up and the people who need a hand out. And I'm really, really proud. that time frame that I was mayor was the largest amount of income qualifying housing that the city of Reading has ever done. And I'm proud of the councils that have come prior to myself who have said we need affordable housing within Reading. And in all honesty, affordable housing doesn't look like what it used to look like. Affordable housing looks like our average sort of townhome or apartment or any of those sort of things. So I firmly believe that we could put income qualifying housing with wraparound services anywhere within the city of Reading.
Mr. Crye.
Just Kevin is fine. So my father's not here. For me, the one thing about affordable housing, we have to learn to live within our budget and our means here in Shasta County. I am all for affordable housing and all these wraparound services Ms. Resner talks about, but I would also love to have the New York Yankees relocate to Redding, California. That's not going to happen. We have to take a tough fiscal look at where we spend our money. And I'm not so much about spending money, I'm about investing money in terms of people and our community. Again, housing, we absolutely have to have it. But we have to run everything through the veil and the colander of what's fiscally responsible. Our federal government is printing money. When Ms. Resner became the mayor, Reading had a budget surplus of $5 million. In the cycle of 20 and 21, it was at a $1.7 million deficit. In 22 and 23, she voted a budget that is a $3.2 million deficit. That's the gift that keeps on giving, ladies and gentlemen. We have to be fiscally responsible with everything we do, housing included.
Income qualifying housing is also something that allows market rate to be competitive. I think that anybody who understands markets understands the actual just supply and demand that Ms. Volmers was discussing is that we have limited resources here. And when we do these sort of partnerships, it does allow the market rate to be more competitive. I also think that we have limited resources here. And I am going to, I heard you say something that is just, it's so inaccurate. It is so inaccurate. In fact, we were doing so well that we had an additional 5% to put into reserves, which is the most amount of money that we have had in savings ever.
Kevin, Mr. Crye.
Kevin, I know your father. So the thing for me is, I'll tell you what, Jake, let's just move on to the next question. Yeah, I mean, for me, like this is so much more than an office. This is about Shasta County and it forever being gone. And I don't have notes. Now, I'm not just speaking from my heart, I'm speaking from fact. I don't have to regurgitate factoids that I wrote down. People here, I'm launching a site, Whistleblower Reading and whistleblowershasta.com, and all this is going to be on it because the veil of transparency is going to be lifted. Because I'll tell you who's getting these deals are contractors and other people that are in the social elite. And the social elite that has ran Reading for what I now understand 30, 40 years is coming to an end.
At one point in Crye's campaign, every District 1 voter received a mailer that included a sinister-looking photo that was erroneously suggested Resner's Dutch Brother coffee businesses were infested with flies, rodents, and roaches, a false, dirty political move that resulted in a cease and desist letter to Crye from Resner's attorney. But even so, by then the damage had been done, and many Crye supporters believed the lie and turned against Resner. Perhaps the most damaging nail in Resner's campaign coffin was the day she agreed to appear with Crye on a conservative talk show radio host Carl Bott's program for a debate between the two District 1 candidates. Bott laid down the ground rules that candidates should stick to the issues and solutions. Resner adhered to Bott's rules, but when it was Crye's turn to respond, Crye didn't address the issues or solutions, but tore into Resner with personal slams and verbal jabs at every opportunity, attacking my opponent left and right. Crye controlled the debate. Bott did not intervene to stop Crye, who treated Resner like a political punching bag. During the break, which was not recorded, Resner lost it and yelled at Crye. She allegedly said something to the effect of she would punch him in his effing face. The timing was golden because Crye's assistant Carolyn Gomes was sitting outside the studio where she had heard the exchange and promptly broadcast it across social media. Many North State election insiders believe that the volatile radio interview contributed greatly to Resner losing to Crye by just 90 votes. But before Crye won the election, he participated in several debates and forums where his answers sometimes left the audience dumbstruck, such as his statement where Crye spoke of his departed brother's bad decision that led him to his ultimate death. "You play stupid games, you win stupid prizes," Crye said.
My brother, 2015, August 28th, died on his motorcycle running from the police in Palo Cedro. Went through a fence, hit a tree, broke his neck. Sorry, Mom. When people say I don't understand, that's a joke. You play stupid games, you win stupid prizes.
The shy girl who attended Anderson High School with Crye remembers fondly Crye's younger brother who died in the crash Crye mentioned during a debate. She described Crye's brother as far more funny, smart, athletic, and charming than his older brother Kevin. People really loved him, the shy classmate said of the younger Crye brother. Of course, Crye did win the election and took the oath of office to become Shasta County's District 1 supervisor. A lifetime of Crye's worst personality traits quickly came home to roost in his supervisor job. Once Crye was targeted for a recall, he traveled across the country and throughout California campaigning against the recall. Crye's faith, family, flag, country shtick appealed to duped folks outside Shasta County who believed the fantastical lies about the snowflakes trying to get rid of the poor, innocent Crye. He's appeared on podcasts, talk shows, network interviews, and at freedom festivals where he preached the gospel of lies that claimed he was being beaten up and recalled by a bunch of evil liberals who hated God, country, flag, and family. Of course, all of that was a lie, as was Crye's claim that the governor Gavin Newsom wanted to replace Crye with a Democrat. By the way, Crye's misleading anti-Kevin Crye recall ads were paid for by Anselmo, aka the Water Users Committee. The truth was that Crye was being recalled because it was quickly apparent to concerned citizens that Shasta County was circling the drain thanks to the extremist board majority. Although technically Jones was the chair, Crye was identified as the linchpin who exhibited the biggest ego, the poorest judgment, and the worst impulse control of nearly any supervisor in Shasta County history. Up and down the state and across the nation, Crye delivered variations of the same speech over and over. At nearly every event or speech, Crye wrapped things up with a somber expression before saying something schmaltzy like, "People ask me how they can help, and I tell them, first, my family and I are under attack and we need your prayers. Second, if you want to help me, send money." Cha-ching. Like a TV evangelist preaching to gullible old ladies with barely 2 nickels to rub together, thanks to new friends like Lindell, Crye's victim-based sob story and his pitch to send money went viral. Gosh, with enough checks arriving from all over the country, a guy could easily pay cash for a nearly $700,000 home, which is exactly what Crye did recently. Imagine how difficult it would be to account for thousands of private checks arriving from around the country. Who'd be the wiser about how much richer Crye has become thanks to his request of prayers and money? Crye was up to his slick tricks of deception from the get-go, such as when he hosted a town hall meeting that included planting a friend, Susan Taylor, to pitch a setup softball question. To watch the video is to see a study of deception in real time. You can see Crye feign not knowing the woman when the truth is they're friends, and she even hosted a campaign fundraiser for Crye in her home.
Start first.
Okay, my name is Susan Taylor, District 1, and my question is about, now you said you can't do anything with the youth problem, but see, we took in a homeless 18-year-old girl that didn't speak much English. She's Chinese. She's legal, but was homeless. There was no avenue for her. She came out of the group home system here in town. There was nothing for her. She was on the streets. She had just a bag of clothes. We took her in, didn't know her, and put her through school. Doesn't matter, but I went to social services. They did nothing. They didn't care. I got a hard no, too bad, nothing we can do for her. Apply for food stamps was all we got, or Medi-Cal, but she needed more than that. So I want to know if there's going to be something to bridge the gap from group homes or foster children so that they don't end up homeless, on drugs, mentally incapacitated. That's it.
That's right. That's it. Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that question. I'll tell you, when it comes to foster homes or foster to adopt, I know very little about that. So you said it was Susan? Susan. So if you could, please make sure after you're done, connect with Carolyn. I'd love to get your information, because I don't know where I can lean in and help. I don't know where some of those disconnects are.
I don't know either.
Well, we can figure it out together, because if we don't do it, maybe nobody else is. And that's the reality to me, is because
there's a lot of kids like her out there.
Absolutely. I know that there's different programs at SCOE that identify those children within the school systems. My wife works in the school systems, but I think we probably need to actually, wherever Susan is, there's Susan right there. So Susan might actually be a great resource. That's Susan.
Much has been written about Crye's obvious missteps, manipulations, and blatant deception since he took office. He and the board majority ditched the county's Dominion voting system. He charged the county to install a Pac-Man machine in his office. He collaborated with MyPillow CEO Mike Lindell, sometimes texting Lindell during board meetings, even during votes, and charged the county to fly across the country for Lindell-related meetings the public have never specifically heard about. Beyond that, he met with legislators and other important people. He brought a bevy of national election deniers to Shasta County, from Doug Frank to Clint Curtis. Plus, although Chris Street, Crye's selection for the CEO application process, didn't get the job, Crye has obviously continued consulting with Street as he parrots Street's talking points, sometimes to the exact number, $1.85 per hand-counted vote, for example. During one Board of Supervisors meeting, Crye mocked the BMI of a frequent public speaker, Suzanne Barrymore, who's running for a seat on the board, District 2. Barrymore's biggest offense, which may have given Crye justification for going after Barrymore with such cruel personal blow, was that she dared to routinely criticize Crye during the public comment period. Despite having a lifetime of experience telling one lie after another, when it comes to Crye's success at concealing lies, practice has not made perfect. Crye often stumbles when caught in a lie, looking no more convincing than a kid with powdered sugar around his mouth as he claims to have not eaten the cookie.
And then for full transparency, did you craft those bullet points, or did you have an attorney?
I crafted them.
You crafted them all yourself, without the help or assistance of any attorney?
I crafted them.
All by yourself?
I crafted them.
Did you have an attorney assist you in any way?
What, I mean, how much clearer can I be? Like, I crafted them.
Crye's pattern of mean retaliation reemerged when Judy Salter, arguably one of Shasta County's most prominent and well-respected community dynamos, approached Crye to discuss the concept of a charter county. Salter said Crye verbally attacked her. Knowing what we know about Crye, it's no surprise Crye ripped into Salter when he had the chance, because Salter has been an unabashed critic of Crye's bad decisions and poor leadership. Plus, she's a member of the Recall Kevin Crye Committee. And this is a quote from Judy's Facebook. Yesterday, Supervisor Kevin Crye told me I was too old to be involved in political matters or really anything else. He said my time is past. He attacked the wrong old woman. Any other old ladies want to join in me in taking him on? It's time to recall Kevin Crye. Crye's well-honored style of dressing down and humiliating strong, confident women is so effective that, like Resner, even if Crye had pushed someone like Mother Teresa long enough, no doubt even she'd explode and threaten to punch him in his effing face. Almost from the moment Crye's creased slacks hit the supervisor seat, Crye routinely targeted 3 of the county's highest-level female leaders, District Attorney Stephanie Bridget, Registrar of Voters Kathy Darling Allen, and District 3 Supervisor Mary Rickert. As one county insider put it, if Stephanie Bridget was a Stephen instead of a Stephanie, Kevin wouldn't go after the DA the way that he does. Now that Crye is the board chair, he's gone into full DEFCON dictator mode. His first week of chair was reported here, with a linked article, as well as in the North State Breakdown by Benjamin Nguyen. By the second meeting, Crye had implemented an authoritarian razor wire and carrot stick behavior modification method of dealing with citizen Christian Gardner, who is known to stand and hold signs to alert the board when speakers or supervisors have veered beyond county jurisdiction. The board majority sits mutely by as speaker after speaker launches into topics far from county authority, seemingly blind and deaf to protests from the audience and especially Gardner's signs that point out the obvious violations. To control Gardner, the new board chair, Crye, suddenly implemented a new rule where he would grant extra time to speakers if Christians stood with the signs behind them as they spoke. The same was true if somebody from the audience made a noise or protest or exasperation, after which Crye would order the clerk of the board to grant more time to the speaker or to even restart the clock. At a recent meeting, Crye said that Gardner's actions said a lot more about him as a person, perhaps hoping to shame Gardner into submission and obedience. In effect, Crye has perfected the art of shutting people down and shutting them up, or they'd face swift punishment. Heil, Chair Crye.
So Mr. Jones has no direct conflict of interest voting on impact fees. Otherwise, county council and the CEO would advise him of such, and they have not done that. So economics lesson related to impact fees. The government, every time it increases control over the private economy, we are in a capitalist economy, as much as you local socialists refuse to acknowledge that. When the government puts their boot on the neck of the economy, it never winds up well. Taxes and fees are seizures of private property, and then the government redistributes those taxes and fees. And when our local socialist Joshua Brown comes up here, his talk about government control over the economy, it's right out of the Communist Manifesto. His talking points are out of the communist. This is about taxes and fees. The communists want to increase control over the economy, and this is absolutely related. And these people that clap, when they hear the communist tenets, they're just admitting their socialist tendencies, and what they want are conservative, constitutional republic, capitalistic county that it should be. And again, thank you so much again for getting your boot as much as you can off of the capitalist economy. Again, this is an economics lesson, so I know most people on the left side of the room, their synapses are short-circuiting. I get it, because they don't know what a true economics system we're in.
We're going to add 30 more seconds. If we're going to just yell out, we're just going to keep doing it. I added it to the last gentleman that was interrupted like that, so Stephanie, give him 30 more seconds.
So thank you. We have to, the economy, this is impact fees related.
Hey, excuse me, can both of you do me a favor and please sit down?
No, I'm not going to sit down.
Okay, so Christian, here's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get through a hearing.
I get it.
Lori, do me a favor. Please sit down and let him just stand. That's fine. Please sit down, Lori.
It's disruptive.
That, you know what? That says more about him than you. So go ahead and just let him stand there. All right. Set his clock back to 2 minutes. Please continue.
So again, relating to government control over the economy, regarding impact fees, we have had 50% inflation in the last 3 years. 50%. Go to the store. We all see it. The California government is $70 billion in debt. Admitted, it's likely $100 billion. You think these fees, you think not collecting these fees is going to affect our local government? Oh, just wait till the upcoming budget cycle in about 4 months. Oh, you'll see some cuts because they're going to be forced by the state of California. Thank you.
And after that, every time, Mr. Gardner, you stand up and disrupt the speaker, I'll just start their clock over.
In one bizarre, childish move, at the January 30th meeting, some speakers who'd known the order in which they had submitted public comment cards discovered that Crye was shuffling the deck of cards to his own liking, out of the order which they were received by the clerk of the board. More control for Crye, less security and fairness for the public. Even as recently as during yesterday's Board of Supervisors meeting, Crye wasted precious time and dragged out a seemingly benign discussion about an upcoming employee appreciation picnic. Crye droned on about mundane minutia and details. Hey, I can get a band, a far cry from the agenda item's original intent. At one point, Crye excitedly singled out and needled Rickert in what appeared to be a thinly veiled attempt to make her look flustered and foolish. Crye's sudden fixation on what Rickert should do for the picnic followed District 2 Supervisor Tim Garman's offer to donate a gift basket and District 5 Supervisor Chris Kellstrom's promise to contribute some of Kellstrom's famous peanut brittle. District 4 Supervisor Patrick Jones chuckled and asked if they'd like him to donate a gun to the event. Hell to the max, no. That's when a smirking Crye turned to Rickert as if they were friends and suggested that, hey, since she's in the ag business, she's a rancher, she could organize and oversee a petting zoo at the picnic for the kids. Rickert laughed and tried to deflect. She told Crye that bulls don't do well in petting zoos. He pressed on, saying he knew she had connections and she could make it all happen. Easy. Remember the shy classmate who described Crye as Eddie Haskell? Crye's petting zoo stunt to corner Rickert into a manipulated, difficult situation was a classic Haskell-esque move. Crye pushed his Rickert-led petting zoo idea despite knowing that he's given her the most board assignments, which means Rickert has the least amount of free time of all the supervisors. Plus, he's aware that Rickert, who supervises the biggest district in the county, lives 80 miles from Reading. Compare and contrast, it's a-okay for Kellstrom to donate a modest tin of peanut brittle, and yes, please, to Carmen's gift basket, perhaps containing a hand-hewn wood cutting board, but Crye expected Rickert to orchestrate an entire dang petting zoo. Why? Because Crye said so. Set up, score, Crye wins, Rickert loses. It's similar to the way Crye continues to publicly pester Rickert during his board report to be a guest on his radio show. After all, other supervisors have accepted that invitation. Sure, but Crye doesn't make a sport of relentlessly mistreating and humiliating the other supervisors, although Crye does attack Garmin periodically, especially if Garmin has challenged Crye. No sane person, after being publicly belittled, tormented, dismissed, and disrespected, meeting after meeting by Crye, would accept an invitation on Crye's radio show. Except for me. I'll go on there. See how good he does. Crye knows that, but he appears to derive sadistic jollies from putting Rickert on the spot and watching her squirm. Another one of Crye's recent mean boy moves of retaliation was when he assigned Rickert to a legal board previously held by retired public defender Jeff Gorder. In one fell swoop, Crye accomplished a twofer payback against two people he can't stomach, Rickert and Gorder. He could order Rickert to work on a committee that she had no desire or inclination to join, and punish Gorder by removing him from a position he enjoyed and had decades of expertise. Double hitter. Why, pray tell, would Crye want to punish Gorder? Because Gorder is one of the leaders of the Recall Kevin Crye Committee, someone who has repeatedly called Crye and Jones out on the carpet for their colossal mistakes and perpetual legal blunders.
I wasn't sure what this item was about at first, but I think I've got more of an understanding now. And essentially what it is, it's another attempt at power grabbing by Mr. Jones. I mean, Supervisor Crye, I know you don't want any advice, you probably don't need any advice, but my advice is if Mr. Jones has put something on the agenda, approach it with a very skeptical eye. What's going on here? What are the underlying motives? What power is Mr. Jones trying to acquire? What control is Mr. Jones trying to ascertain? I mean, that's what's going on. I mean, it's so evident. It's so evident. I mean, we used to be able to go through the CAO's office and have an item brought to the agenda. The chairman wouldn't step up and say, no, you can't. Are you about transparency? Are you about department heads and others being able to have their matters heard at a public hearing? If that's what you're about, this is a no-brainer. I mean, this is all about Mr. Jones's pique over the fact that Miss Allen apparently had an item brought to the agenda that he didn't like. Right? Yeah, I see that. And then moved it to the end of the agenda. I mean, it's pettiness. It's absolute pettiness. That's not why not why we elected you. You're here to get things done, not to divide, not to assert power and control. I'm stunned. I really am stunned, but that's my advice. And I think, thank you so much to you two for exercising independent judgment, because I know there's a lot of bumper sticker politics out there. Mr. Garman, for example, when you voted to accept County Council Cruz's language on the Second Amendment resolution. Well, everybody's out saying Garman didn't vote for the Second Amendment. Absolutely absurd. But that's it. That's what you face. I mean, and you've got to come up to this, Mr. Crye. I mean, you said you were going to be a healer, not a divider. I mean, apparently you're willing to sacrifice your potential political career on that Dominion thing. I mean, if you can't see the difference between 1.5 million from the Zuckerberg fund to a building, and yet taking money from Lindell so that his voting system would be implemented, there's a problem, a real problem. Look to Supervisors Rickert and Mr. Garman for guidance. You're new, you're young. Look to them, not to the other guys.
Much of what has been written about Crye covers all of the bonehead moves he's made in public. But perhaps his most damaging personal actions as supervisor happen away from public view, where he targets staff members who don't see eye to eye with him, women in particular. Because of the stress and toxicity that Crye brings to the county's highest level offices, many employees have abandoned their county careers to accept other jobs away from Crye's bullying, interference, sarcasm, and sexism. The most serious staff criticisms of Crye, sexism, sexual harassment, intimidation, threats, gender discrimination, and fomenting a hostile work environment, have been reported to the county's Human Resources Department. County insiders confirm that as a result of those reports, Crye and at least one other supervisor are under third-party investigation. At least one former employee is pressing charges against Crye for undisclosed allegations and damages. At least one is out on a stress-related leave of absence. The investigation into the complaints has dragged on for months with no resolution in sight. But in a catch-22 situation, the investigation's findings may ultimately end up backfiring on the whistleblowers, as they may end up being reviewed by not just the county council, but the entire board. For several reasons, this possibility horrifies the deeply discontented employees who summed up the courage to seek help from human resources. They're tormented by the realization that some of the supervisors reading the investigation's findings are the very supervisors whose behaviors triggered the complaints in the first place. Furthermore, the whistleblowers have been told that there is no guarantee of confidentiality, which means their names will be known to the supervisors and county council. Finally, the complaints are also aware that the county's upcoming new council, Joseph Lamore, is in a romantic relationship with one of Crye's friends who happens to work for him. All those factors and more have caused them to doubt the possibility of an objective investigation with real consequences. Their list of grievances about Crye is long. Some allegations bear an eerie resemblance to the parents' complaints about Coach Crye and also student Crye. In no particular order, staff and public complaints include: some department heads are so fed up with Crye consistently hogging multiple hours of their staff's time on a regular basis that they will not allow Kevin access to their staff. When Crye does converge upon a department and demand everyone stop everything and give Crye their undivided attention, staff is held captive as he talks in circles, rambles, and often doesn't have a point. Crye treats county employees as if they work for him exclusively. He expects them to be at his beck and call to answer any questions anytime, look up any obscure piece of information, and chase down every single thing that pops into his head. Crye asks staff personal questions about everything from their spouses, children, and their children's schools to politics, the recall, and even their religious beliefs and places of worship. According to one former staff member, Crye had a way of bringing up personal information at work that gave her the heebie-jeebies. One former key staff member's team members made a pact that if she were trapped with Crye behind closed doors for a certain amount of time, out of concern for her welfare and the sketchy impression it left, they'd knock and intervene with an excuse of something pressing she needed to leave and take care of. Crye has been known to conduct his private business from the dais, sometimes having county staff act as the intermediaries between Crye assistants and county clerks. Crye often fails to mention conflicts of interest and crucial board decisions, such as the fact that his county council recommendation, Joseph Lamore, was in a romantic relationship with one of Crye's top Ninja Coalition employees. Likewise, he has failed to disclose when considering hiring Dr. James Moo as health officer that Moo had contributed to Crye's campaign. At the meeting before last, Crye failed to disclose a peep of personal ties before or after Nigel Skeet's random, confusing presentation that promoted Skeet's Shasta Chamber of Commerce venture. Not only did Crye fail to mention that the men are friends, but Skeet works for Crye and is even given credit at the end of Crye's video, Kevin Crye, The Inspiring Road to Victory. Skeet is also a photographer who's captured many Crye photos. Full disclosure, this reporter's photo was also taken by Skeet. Crye makes personal comments about female employees' degree of attractiveness and observations about their bodies, both in terms of being over or underweight, or just right. Crye doesn't conceal what several staff members refer to as leering, openly staring at female employees' bodies, especially as they walk away. A current county employee recalled an exchange that sickened her between Crye and a former female employee who'd rushed into a meeting holding a donut. When Crye questioned the woman's food choice, she explained it was because she'd not eaten anything all day and needed the calories. Crye asked if she pulled the donut from the trash and then said, with an earshot of multiple colleagues, something to the effect of, "Yeah, we all know you'll go throw it up afterwards." Crye touches some of the female staff members, bumping, nudging, and even poking their stomachs. Crye has violated county policies by showing up at some of the county work sites and directing county employees about their duties. If Crye believes a staff member does not agree with him or doesn't demonstrate an allegiance to him, he barks orders and ignores input. The work environment is one of fear and extreme stress. One employee said that her staff members have confided that whenever they arrive at work, if they see Crye's vehicle, they literally feel sick and do not want to go inside. Crye often boasts that he attends the new employees' orientations to introduce himself to new hires. Crye is also a frequent visitor to the county's personnel office, where he hangs out in the waiting room and chats up new employees in a way that one staff member said resembled grooming. "It's creepy," she said. One former employee who was privy to Crye's unprofessionalism personified frequently saw his darkest, most dysfunctional side, described some of the most troublesome Crye behaviors that she and other employees, mainly women, experienced. She said Crye's ways of treating, misleading, and dealing with employees fluctuated wildly depending on whether they could convince Crye that they were on his team or not. She said that those who had differing opinions or who pushed back did so at great personal peril because they received Crye's predictable, negative treatment, much as he treated female athletes who displeased him. He was always trying to set us up for failure, she recalled. He'd sabotage us. He treated us like pawns. Every day we go to work and it was like our own boss would light us on fire. You can't perform at a top level when someone is attacking you from all sides. That boss, that someone, is Supervisor Kevin Crye. She took her complaints, not just to HR, but to the CEO, but nothing changed. What's the point of reporting anything if it's just going to go to the board, she asked, noting that it's no wonder that other employees won't come forward. One indication that the public is increasingly getting wise to the real Kevin Crye is that even his most ardent former supporters have vanished. For the most part, Kevin Crye's increasingly dwindling number of remaining supporters consists of a ragtag, motley crew of people who are renowned for extremist statements. God, I can name all these people. Okay, so the first one, that's Mark Kent. We got Mike Lindell, we got Lori Bridgeford, Rich Gallardo, Nick Gardner, Terry Raposa, Patty Plum, John Knight. I can't tell who that is. And then Reverge, and then that's Moo. Only two people on there that I can't name. Nary a moderate person speaks words of support during the public comment period to defend Crye. In fact, during a recent Recall Kevin Crye rally before the board meeting, one of the lone signs against Crye's recall was held by John Knight. Knight's recently most well known as someone whose uneducated conspiracy-laced public comments about the Japanese arming mosquitoes with syringes went viral and was roundly discredited and ridiculed, once again making Shasta County the political laughingstock of the West. Another woman who buckled under Crye's domineering, controlling management style said she'd gone on to greener pastures, and since then she's had time to reflect upon her time with the county. She often wonders if she should have, handled things differently. "I'm older and wiser now," she said. "At the time, I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to make a scene." She added that although she wishes a stampede of former and current county employees would blow the whistle on Crye and Jones in particular, she understands their reluctance. She said the fear factor is real. Fear of retaliation, fear of being revealed, fear of lies being told about them, and of being called liars. She said Crye constantly brags about how well-connected and influential he is. She said many county workers are afraid that if they tell the truth of what a nightmare it is to work with the county, and with Crye in particular, that they'll be branded as troublemakers, that their reputations will be so damaged that they'll have difficulty finding other work. For her, she's looking forward and putting the trauma of working for Crye behind her. "I haven't looked back," she said, but then admitted she grieves the loss of what looked like a promising career. She figures she's at the anger stage of grief. She's angry to watch Crye talk as if he's a great leader, but the fact is that many employees and department heads in particular avoid him. She's angry to watch the exodus of quality employees flee the county, taking with them the institutional knowledge and expertise. Personally, she's angry for all the years she invested in a job she thought would see her through to the rest of her career. She's especially angry that she couldn't protect her team from Crye. "I thought I could handle it," she said. "I couldn't." Finally, there's one former employee who's of two minds. On the one hand, she remains bothered that she's lacked the courage to sign the petition to recall Crye while she was still working at the county. She and many other county employees wanted very much to sign the petition, but they didn't dare for fear that they would be held to pay if Crye found out. But on the other hand, she sees the March 5th recall election as a grand opportunity to rid Shasta County government of the man who made her and her colleagues' lives so unbearable that they resigned from jobs that they previously loved. Meanwhile, like the teenage girl Crye allegedly assaulted in a pool party bathroom more than 30 years ago, a Shasta County employee who's on the verge of giving notice wants the public to know the real Kevin Crye and to vote accordingly. Kevin is an imposter who's fooled and hurt a lot of people, she said, but people aren't as stupid as Kevin thinks, and I hope they wake up and recall him before he can do any more damage. And at the bottom, there's a tagline. If you appreciate journalist Doni Chamberlain's reporting, please consider a donation to a news cafe. And I would have to reiterate that. Please like, follow, and share items from a news cafe. Doni is a fantastic journalist. I have full faith in anything that she reports, that she has done her due diligence as far as research and gathering the proper and correct information that is pertinent and informational for the public. She's a fantastic reporter. Probably a couple of things that after this I do have to say that I have over the time that Kevin Crye has been supervisor and I have been watching just BOS meetings. He absolutely has zero respect for women. I've watched him talk over them, berate them, belittle them, and of all ages, of all types of, of all walks of life, professional to somebody just coming to the board for help. Also, in that same amount of time, I have watched him just pretend off as hard as he can that he knows what he's doing. From the very, very, very first meeting that he ever sat on that panel, all he has done is when he gets directed some sort of question or if he is given some sort of direction that he needs to do, he shirks off basically any instinct to immediately collect information. And then he's just like, oh, you know what? I'll get more information for this at another time. Or can we come back to this and so I can get more information? And then whatever the question or topic is never comes back again. So he's counting on people to just forget that he was asked to do something or to gather some information or to do his job. And then just poofs off into the ether. Unless it is something that is brought up by Patrick. When Patrick brings something up, all of a sudden, Kevin is an expert. And there's no discussion, there's no question, there's no finding more information. It's just put it through. Then they have this 3-2 majority. So basically anything that Patrick Jones wants, Kevin, as chair, can make sure goes through. And then this is the issue that Shasta County is dealing with right now, is that there is a very small minority of, I don't even know what to call them, these new types of conservatives that have little to no understanding about how this particular body of government works, which is why all the public comment periods are so off the rails, is because I don't know what they think that the Shasta County Board of Supervisors is able to fix, but really the Shasta County Board of Supervisors is a rubber stamp on where to direct funds for city and county projects. All of this voting machine stuff, all of this medical directive stuff, all of these other things are so extra and not under the purview. That's why they only ever write strongly worded letters to the governors, because they can't, there's nothing they can do. And these constituents like Terry Raposa and Rich Gallardo and Patty Plum and Laura Hobbs and all of these nutters and these cookers who come up and have all these wild ideas about what the Shasta County Board of Supervisors can do is all perpetuated by Kevin Crye and Patrick Jones because they want this support so they can push their agenda. And that is it. That is it. All of the qualified Shasta County professionals are leaving Shasta County because they cannot stand the toxic work environment. All of the people who have the knowledge and the lore and everything that is needed to be able to run departments smoothly and accurately and with precision are leaving. We're losing Kathy Darling Allen because she is retiring. And if Kevin Crye does not get recalled, then that board majority is going to install a registrar of voters who is going to do what they want them to do. And that is a very dangerous situation. So please, March 5th, please vote to recall Kevin Crye. Please go visit recallkevincrye.org. Please check out as many articles on anewscafe or wherever you need to find them to learn about how deeply unqualified and dangerous the continued service of Kevin Crye is to Shasta County. Again, I am Ashley Winters. I am the media wench for Echoplex Media. Thank you for watching, listening, while I worked my way through that article and all, all the videos. I appreciate your time and attention. And Tuesdays when there's a board meeting, I will be up and streaming that on the Echoplex Media Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Echoplex Media. Thank you again, and have a wonderful day, night, evening, whatever it is, whatever time it is. Bye.